Welcome to the latest edition of the Hudson County Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Haig, and with me today is a very special guest who was, without question, one of the top athletes in Hudson County in the early 1970s. He was a star, two-sport star at St. Joseph's of the Palisades in West New York, where he was a basketball star, but more importantly played football, and then went on to play big-time football at Cornell University, where he was a star running back. And then later in life, he became a very successful dentist, which he still does in Bergen County. And it's my good friend, Don Fanelli. Don, how are you doing today?
Very good, Jim. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. And special thanks to both, to John Lynch and Rich Turpak for making this podcast take place today, because they did a great job in getting your number for me. So
Absolutely.
And they're both great friends. So anyway, all right. So let's turn the clock back, Donnie, to the 1960s, and you growing up in Union City. And where exactly did you grow up?
I grew up on 18th Street, right off of Summit Avenue in Union City. A stone's throw from St. Michael's Monastery complex there.
Okay. And what was that like there? What were there a lot of kids in that neighborhood at the time?
Oh yeah, it was inundated with young kids. I can still remember my childhood friend, Stevie McGrath. We were like salt and pepper. He was a crew-cutted blondie, and I was a dark-haired Italian, And we played on the streets together. We had friends down on Kerrigan Avenue, Gilmore Schoolyard, and, my friends from St. Michael's Parish. I was involved at St. Mike's as an altar boy, and played biddy and then eventually CYO basketball for the great Frank McGovern. I couldn't imagine a more fulfilling and nurturing environment to grow up. Oftentimes in today's world, when you think of urban America, you get all these negative connotations about what it's like, gangbangers and such. We had tough kids, but we also had kids that were just full of life, that loved playing and competing, and it was good, honest fun most of the time.
All right, and talk a little bit about that incredibly, Don, that St. Michael's CYO program in Union City is still going strong after all these years. And, of course, you mentioned Frank McGovern, who was an absolute legend, and we inducted into the Hudson County Sports Hall of Fame a lot like you. But that program has still gone strong and goes strong today with people like Steve Bisciardi and Steve Bisciardi Jr. and Carlos Cueto, and thank God that, it's some 60 years later, that CYO program is still going strong thanks to the hard work and dedication of those people.
Absolutely. I think there was a fellow, his last name was Shabazian.
Yes, George Shabazian, yes. Yeah. Great man. We just lost him recently. He died at the age of 100.
Yeah, I think it was one of the first, maybe Little League Baseball was the first sporting activity I got involved in Union City, but surely the biddy basketball program out of Robert Waters, every Saturday morning I'd take my bike and drive down there and stop at the bodega, get myself a Yoo-hoo and some Drake sugar cookies, and then watch every game, the 8 o'clock game, the 9 o'clock game, the 10 o'clock game. But that kind of springboarded me into the parish league. That's what the biddy program was at St. Mike's then that Frank started. Once you played the parish league with the lowered baskets, you then eventually 7th and 8th grade qualified to play for the CYO program. What was interesting, I think it was my 6th grade year, Frank then started a traveling biddy team that was called the Angels.
Okay.
And we wore sweatshirts with little felt A's on it, no names, nothing fancy. Billy Field, Mike McNamara, Ray Field. I'm trying to think of some of the guys on that team, but it was
Mike McNamara, who went on to play at St. Anthony's?
Yes, oh yeah.
Wow.
Mike was 1 year younger than me, but he was part of that program, and him and I to this day stay very close as friends. So it went from that then to the 7th and 8th grade CYO program, where we played all the games over at St. Augustine's, and talk about the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat. When we were 8th graders, we won the North, and we went down to Jersey City to play against St. Paul of Greenville.
That's my parish.
Yeah,
Oh, Jay, my good friend Jay. Yeah, God bless him.
Jay O'Brien hit a shot at the buzzer that I was doing some fancy play. I was breaking long, and the guy taking the ball out threw it to my back. Jay picked it up. It's the only 2 points he scored the whole game. Hit it from the foul line. They beat us. The agony of defeat. But those things are so crystal clear in my mind. It's incredible.
Well, that's the reason why Jay O'Brien didn't score any points that game is that's because Neil Rosa didn't let anybody else shoot the ball.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Traveling 4 years ago, I was walking on the boardwalk in Spring Lake. It's one day in October, and I saw that face with 2 women flanked on either side. I stopped and said, Jay. As soon as he saw me, he said, Donnie, I hadn't seen him in 40 years. It was unbelievable.
Oh, Jay O'Brien. Yeah, Jay is a very, very close friend of mine, and after we get done with this, I'm going to call him and to tell him that we were talking about him. Close friend. I looked up to him a great deal when I was growing up as a kid because he lived 2 blocks away from me, and he never treated me like I was a little kid, so I looked up to him a great deal. But Neil Rosa was a great player at Marist. And unfortunately, we lost him about 2 years ago to leukemia. But
yeah,
very sad. But he was the athletic director at Bordentown High School, way down in South Jersey. But I used to run into Neil all the time at the cross country championships down in Lincroft, and it was always a great big hug because it was the neighborhood, and it was.
He's much more mature than a lot of us, in terms of his skills.
Yep.
I think a lot of those Jersey City kids that we played against in the CYO programs, they were just, I was kind of up and coming. I really wasn't a good ball handler, but after time, I started feeling a real, aptitude to score and to play bigger than I was because I think I only played at about 6'1".
Yep.
And I was always covering some forward that was 2 or 3 inches taller than me. Well, football helped me with that.
Okay. All right. So growing up as a kid, you played all 3 sports, correct? Football, baseball, basketball?
Yes, I did. I played right up through Little League. I was, like Baby U. I was a big guy hitting home runs, so I was getting right over the First Street Park fence. But, once we got into pitching from the stretch and all that, I just lost that interest. It was a little too slow for me, and I kept on with the other 2.
Okay. All right. And did you play Pop Warner football in Union City? And who was running that back then? Was that Charlie Bremer? Who ran Pop Warner football back then in Union City?
Yeah, we had no Pop Warner that I knew of. They had a thing called the Union City Comets that came around when I was in the 7th or 8th grade. But basically, I used to buy my equipment and 2 guys from Harrison. Find a spot in St. Michael's, climb the fence where there was grass, and we'd play there. That was my pre-high school experience.
Wow, that's it, huh?
Yep, and then freshman year at St. Joe's, I remember actually Jerry Bellotti had come to my school. I went to Holy Rosary in New York City and took me and my sister up to St. Joe's to see the school and, look around. Because he lived in my neighborhood growing up. And I was very impressed by the place. I'd be impressed almost by any place. But it was nice to know that somebody cared enough to at least want me to take a look at it. So, I never looked back at St. Joe's, going to St. Joe's. I loved it.
All right, talk a little bit about the irony about going to St. Joe's. You told me the other day on the phone that you were thinking about going to St. Peter's Prep, and then it was Jerry Bellotti who took you to St. Joe's, and that changed your mind. And how ironic is it that Jerry then ended up having such a great career at St. Peter's, and he brought Richie Hansen with him to St. Peter's?
Absolutely. And, Jerry is one of my life's mentors. He's up there with my father and Frank Gargiulo and Jerry. They were very instrumental in, teaching me many things other than just, where to go to school. I still am close to Jerry. He lives in Rutherford. I treat him and his whole family. I'm very grateful for that. But yeah, very ironic. Richie too. I think Richie might have been a freshman when I was a senior at St. Joe's. He's done some wonderful things there. And Jerry got the ball rolling. He took that program, which was basically dead, with football.
Absolutely. You don't have to remind me. You don't have to remind me how dead it was, because it was in the ground dead. And I was part of that. In the ground dead. But it turned around with Bellotti, and it turned around in a heartbeat. 2 years after the fact, after Jerry got there, they had a winning season, and then in '85 he brought them to the state playoffs for the first time ever. So that was
Yeah.
that it was all due to Jerry Bellotti turning the program.
Didn't his son, wasn't his son a
Absolutely, Greg is still a good friend of mine too, and unfortunately though, no, well yeah, Greg played, but when the year that Greg was a quarterback, they weren't that good. But the year that Greg he was a safety, he was a junior, was the year that they went to the state playoffs in 1985, and unfortunately they went to play Seton Hall Prep and they lost in the mud. They lost 7-0. It was terrible, but still. They beat North Bergen that year in '85, and that was the first time ever that St. Peter's ever beat North Bergen. And I still remember that game. Willie Wiltz, who went on to play for Rutgers, had an interception return in that game that I kid with Willie now. He says that interception return was for about 287 yards. That's how long that interception return was. You know. It was more like 70, but now, like, you know, as the years go by, I think it's up to 287 yards.
Yeah. I think when we beat North Bergen, that year, my junior year, that was the first time we had beaten North Bergen ever, and they may have beaten them a couple times after that.
Wow.
County championship win.
Was Coviello the coach in North Bergen when you beat them?
Yeah, but you want to know interesting?
Oh, he must have made them run laps for hours and letting St. Joe's beat North Bergen. Wow.
His mom had passed away. He was not at the field that day. I think Cy Lawrence was in charge of the.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So it had a double negative effect on Coach Coviello. But yeah, that was the day to remember, man. Beating those guys at the packed North Hudson, County Stadium there.
Right.
It was incredible.
And you mentioned Cy Lawrence, and he was my first head coach. How about that? See?
Oh,
yeah.
He sang the national anthem also, didn't he?
He had a great voice, but I'll tell you what. I mean, I can't speak ill of the dead, but I'm going to have to. Don't get close to Cy, because he had a really bad smell about him. like he'd call you over and say, "Here, come here," and I go, "No, I don't want to go near you." You know.
Talk about irony. I've stayed very close with one great player from North Bergen who played at Brown, Tom Clark.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, Tommy and I have stayed very close over the years, and over the last, I'd say, 10 or 15 years, they kind of indoctrinated me into the North Bergen Alumni Association. We meet once a year. We didn't this year because of COVID, and we donate money for their.
Were you at the dinner last year? Or no?
I might have. Where was it at?
Yeah, it was in Ridgefield.
Yeah, that's where we usually have.
Yeah, no, I went last year because they honored Sempier. And I went to the dinner, and I brought Eddie Stinson with me. So yeah.
I did not show up. As a matter of fact, Eddie texted me to find out if I was going. There was a reason I couldn't make it. But yeah, I had been to a bunch. As a matter of fact, Mr. Pizzicello had brought one of the books that they wrote about Coviello, Master something.
Yeah, Warren Wolf wrote it. Master Builder. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. He asked for my autograph. Getting everybody's autograph in that book. He wanted to keep it as a memoir for himself. But yeah, I mean, I'm close to him and a bunch of guys. Teddy Clouby, and Teddy comes up from Vernon to get his teeth taken care of. It's you know what?
You can't. Don't say you're too close to Teddy Clouby though, because that might be. Oh, he's a madman. He's an absolute madman.
But we have a simpatico, him and I.
Okay.
We had Italian mothers, So
oh, okay. There you go. All right, so we got off the beaten path a little bit there, but was it a tough decision for you to make it to go to St. Joe's, or did Jerry Bellotti push you in that right direction, or were you going there even before you met Jerry Bellotti?
No. Most of the nuns at my school wanted me to entertain going into New York to one of the Catholic schools there, or St. Peter's, and I just was more comfortable with the environment. Jersey City was tough those days.
Yep.
And we didn't even have a car. Everything was by bus.
Your family didn't even have a car?
No.
Wow.
Bus everywhere. Yeah, my dad had a car in his 40s and stuff, and he just wasn't a great driver. So my brother-in-law talked him out of keeping the car. He kept his license, but we never had a car. But
wow. What did Dad do for a living?
My dad was a cabinet maker.
Wow.
Yeah, he had skilled hands. He was amazing. He was a great artist too. Born in Paraguay, actually, Asunción, Paraguay. but was raised in Italy. My mom was born and raised in Italy, and he had an interesting life. But also,
wow, so you're second generation then, huh? Wow.
I'm first generation.
First generation. Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, first generation, as well as my three sisters. So yeah, it was.
No, you were born here though, right? Or you born in Italy?
Here. So that would be the first generation here. No?
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I don't know what the terminology is. But at any rate, yeah. So he was a skilled laborer. My mom was a sewing machine operator. She worked in a factory in Union City. Because they bought a house late in life. They they all lived in Hoboken. I lived there for about 2 years of my life. And then we moved over to Union City, where we had that house on 18th Street. It's interesting because they raised 3 girls, and then 16 years later I came.
You're kidding, really? There's 16 years difference between you and your sister?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, the twins are 19 years older than me, and my youngest sister is 16 years older.
Wow.
So
So you were a mistake just like me. My father.
and anything about sports. Sports was basically my only activity besides music. Outside of living in Union City, and that's it's schoolyard and whatnot.
Yeah. See, it's a small world. We have something in common. I had a brother who was 21 years older than me. Same mother and father, but 21 years older than my brother. So yeah, he's no longer with us, but still 21 years older. All right. So now you got to St. Joe's, and did you experience success right away, or did you have to work at getting your way up the ladder?
Well, our freshman football team was, I think, fairly successful. We were not undefeated by any means. I think we lost to Bergen.
And who was your freshman coach?
My freshman coach was Pat Kessler and Eddie Agresta.
Oh wow! Eddie will listen to this, and he'll be very happy to hear that you mentioned him. Go ahead.
Yeah, we had a nice program, and Frank had just come in. Actually, Frank wasn't there yet. Marty Seglio was still the head coach.
Okay.
And Jeffrey might have been.
My good man, my good friend Marty. I love him. I miss him terribly. Go ahead.
We had a great camp going up to camp. I think Jerry helped out with the freshman team as well at the time. I think I tried out for quarterback, and I think Jerry's the one that said, "You get in the backfield. You're not going to be a quarterback. Get back there." So,
At least he told you to get in the backfield. He didn't tell you to line up at the line. Your whole life would have been different.
Right. Well, because I had some speed,
Right.
And Jerry actually he was our freshman basketball coach. We were 15-1 basketball. We had a nice
wow. Not because he knew what he was doing, so there must have been a hell of a lot of talent.
I know. We actually the only game we lost was to Hoboken, which became a repetitive theme in our high school experience. We lost to Hoboken at Demarest, and part of the reason we all believe it was because all the refs were Hoboken teachers.
Always.
We lost by 1 point, I think. That was crazy.
All right. So did you play just freshman football? You didn't.
I played freshman. Oh yeah, freshman only played freshman. No varsity players. No freshmen players.
No, I'm saying, did you get a taste of JV at all? Were you that good, or you stayed strictly freshman?
No, strictly freshman.
Okay. All right. So then, as a sophomore, did you move up to the varsity, or did you play JV as a sophomore?
Well, sophomore year, in camp, there were a couple running backs that were aligned for the spot. There was a senior that was there. Tom Pastor was a senior. He was a running back, and Richie Correa, I think, was a junior. And it was me and my best friend, Marvin Avini. We were aligned for the same position at tailback, the fullback. And we opened up against Patterson Catholic. Morrow got the starting nod, which really activated me. He ran the ball a couple times, and then I got a shot. And I think I finished with like 3 touchdowns and 180 yards. So
in your first game?
My first game. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
guess what? That was it. 3 touchdowns, 180 yards. You weren't going anywhere. He was right there.
Morrow to the 2-back along with Jose Santana.
Okay.
And that was our combo. Bobby McNamara was the fullback. He wound up playing as captain at Brown as well. So we had a nice team. I think we finished maybe about 600, 650. We lost to a couple teams. I broke my collarbone at the end of the year against Marist.
Ouch.
Yeah.
All right. And is Mauro Minervini Michael Minervini's brother?
No, Mauro.
No relation.
Nope. His dad. Minervini's a very popular name for Molfetta, Italy. It was it was almost like Smith here.
Wow.
Yeah, Morrow just had a brother Louis, but they were no cousins.
Wow. And Michael Minervini ended up having a great career at St. Joe. His business, Miami Mike's.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So now, so how did the team do your junior year?
My junior year, we wound up winning the county championship. That's when we had lost only one game in the rain to Hoboken, the time expiring, by some acrobatic catch in the corner of the end zone. That was Ricky Adio, who was a master. He marched them up, like maybe 80 yards in the last couple minutes, and the ball, this fella Angelo Figueroa. Amazing how you remember their names. Right?
Of course.
These guys that hurt you. He caught the ball. He might have even had something wrong with one of his hands, but he caught the ball sliding across the wet, end zone, and for them to beat us. But then we went on and wound up beating North Bergen, which was a momentous occasion for St. Joe's.
Yeah, like I said, Coviello must have had them running laps for about 7 days. So after that loss,
Right.
he must have lost his brain. All right, so you won the county championship. How'd you guys do in the state playoffs?
We had no state playoffs.
Oh, there were none. Okay.
De facto state champs will be based on our schedule. And then senior year was a little more disappointing, but we did.
Oh, that's right. There were no state playoffs back then. They didn't start until in '75. I'm sorry. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So you won the state the parochial B state championship. They gave you a trophy. Yeah. Okay.
County champs. Yep.
All right. That's great. And then same thing your senior year.
No. Senior year we lost a couple of close ones. We lost one to Seton Hall Prep at Seton Hall, and it was kind of a very controversial game. I think I had 2 touchdowns called back, maybe 100 yards called back. It was ridiculous, and we lost by a couple of points at the time. I think the mayor's son was the running back for them. Adanasio, whatever his last name
Yep.
was. Yeah, he was the running back for Seton Hall. So we lost to Seton Hall. We lost to North Bergen our last game of the year. We lost to Lincoln.
Okay.
On Monday, they had Wilbur Wilson and Larry Young. We lost to them, but I think we won. We were like 6-3 or something like that.
Too bad I didn't have you to be like the Hudson County historian, because you rattle these names off one after another. You remember them all.
That junior year, we were county and state champs in basketball too.
Okay. Well, we're going to get to basketball right now. So, all right. Did you at any point know what you were better at, basketball or football? Did you ever think at that time, okay, do I play one sport better than the other? And more importantly, was there one that you loved more than another?
Well, I'll take the second question first.
Okay, go ahead.
I think I loved basketball more.
Wow.
Yeah, because I had a formal introduction with the league, like we talked about when I was a kid. Played in the league. I had coaches that were influential. My football experience, up to high school was basically on my own. My brother-in-law, I had a brother-in-law that played football in the Army back in the 40s, and he taught me everything I knew about football. There was no one else to teach me how to take a handoff, how to catch a ball over my shoulder, how to switch the ball when you were running close to the sideline. So, I think basketball I had more experience with, and, I worked hard at it. I used to wear the ankle weights, and I could dunk, and I was doing all kinds of stuff, that I really enjoyed. I was competitive with all my buddies that went to Emerson. And football, I just happened to be built better for. I was a big, thick kid, that, of course, we didn't even lift weights then, right? Most of what we did was push-ups and calisthenics and whatnot. But
right.
When I saw the way my abilities developed, and that I wasn't growing anymore past, freshman year, then I realized football would be my primary consideration, and it probably would be my ticket to go to college.
All right, let's talk a little bit about your basketball career. Yeah. And what was that like? Say beginning freshman year, you just said Jerry Bellotti was your freshman basketball coach, which is amazing. Sophomore year, did you play varsity right away?
No, I had broken collarbone, so I played JV for the first. Well, I played JV period of the year, but they brought me up I think I missed 5 games because of the collarbone, and then they brought me up about halfway through the season. Matty White was the head coach, and I basically got garbage time. But we did make it to the state championship down in Atlantic City, and wound up losing to like all sophomore team from Gloucester Catholic, and I did get a little play time at the end of that game, so that was kind of my taste of what it'd be like to make it to the dance, you know.
Okay.
And then junior year, we just had a phenomenal year, you know, with the guys on my team. We wound up running to the table. We lost one game in a Christmas tournament, which was before the end of the year, before the end of 70, I guess. And we wound up losing to a team, Monte Cristi, I think they were. I don't know where they were from, maybe Brooklyn or Queens or something. And then ran the table right through to the county championship, state championship. It was incredible.
Wow. Oh, that was 1970 or 71?
Well, it was actually the 70, 71
season, right? Yeah, because
right.
the 71 county championship game is when you beat Prep, and now I know it was at Marist High School, and I went to go look it up, and I had it pictured in my head that it was at the Armory, but it was at Marist High School, and you said that there was something wrong with the Armory, that they didn't play at the game at the Armory then?
It's funny, I talked to Ricky Baker a week ago. Ricky was on that Prep team.
Right.
They started for them, and he told me there was always something wrong with that Armory football because, you know, they were running trucks on it.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so there was a dead spot very close to, you know, the box underneath one of the baskets that they just couldn't repair in time for the game. So, and it was bad enough, so they moved it to Marist, which was probably the biggest gym in the area at the time. So we got to play down there. You know, it was a disappointment for me because I had always wanted to play in the Army as a 6th, 7th, 8th grader, going to those games to watch the North Hudson and the South Hudson teams play square off against each other. It was always, you know, something I wanted to do, but, you know, I liked the result of the game at Marist.
Yeah. And incredibly, as we were talking last week, I always had it in my head that you had more points in that county championship game. But then I did a little research and found out you only had 20, but you were leading scorer in the game. You scored 20. For some reason, in my head, I thought you had 36. But still, you had 20 points to lead St. Joe's to its only county championship, right?
That's right. You know, the guys on my team, you know, Richie Cosgrove, Steve Perry, Mario Macias, Neil Reardon, God rest his soul.
Yep.
We were starting five. And, you know, I looked up their team, Pete Beggins and Kevin Daly, and I think a kid by the name of Mike Blaney.
Yep. George Blaney's brother. Yeah.
And then Joe Chofsky.
Yep.
Right. So that was their five. And we were like incredibly well matched against each other, size-wise, I think, ability-wise, discipline-wise. They had Jerry. What was their coach's name?
Jerry Halligan.
Jerry Halligan, right. And very similar. Frank Grasso, my coach, was a maniac, defensive-minded guy. You know.
Great coach, Frank Grasso. Yeah.
He brought us up to Philly Dickinson to see some fella up there who's their coach.
Al LaBalbo taught the defense.
Nobody switches off on this defense. We get through a pick. You call out the pick, you get through the pick, and you stay with your man. That was now, you know, they hedge out, they do all kinds of crazy stuff. But that was a big part of this strategy was you got to play good defense in order to win a game. And I think it paid off. Yep,
and Al LaBalbo was a defensive wizard. He taught defense all over the place, you know. So he was absolutely. A lot of people learn defense from Al LaBalbo. Okay, so now you graduate from St. Joe's.
Yep.
And was there a decision that you had to make to go to Cornell, and was there other schools that were in the running?
Oh yeah, you know, back in the day there was no restriction on how many schools you could visit. You know, so I mean, for the most part, I was visiting schools for football. I wasn't going to play basketball. Although once I got to Cornell, basketball coach and I had many conversations about me playing both sports. But yeah, I mean, I had gone to Notre Dame for a trip. I had gone to Purdue and Michigan State, and I went to South Carolina, Maryland, and then I visited the Ivies. The only Ivies I think I didn't visit were Harvard and Columbia. One, I just couldn't see myself as a Harvard player. Can you imagine that? And Columbia was too close to home.
Okay.
So when I had gone out to Cornell. You know, I visited Dartmouth and Yale and all. My mom loved Coach Carm Koza because he spoke Italian to her, you know. But Yale was in the city, so I didn't think about really seriously going to Yale. Princeton was in New Jersey, and it was a beautiful campus. But again, silly decisions, right?
Yep.
Princeton, burning down Princeton? What are you kidding. But when I went to Cornell, they just had a big running back that was featured in their offense. I was used to carrying the ball a lot, but it just seemed to be a perfect fit. Then I had met some people on campus and alumni that really, made the difference to me. So I'm so grateful to be able to go and play at Cornell in a beautiful, utopian, kind of beautiful place to go to school. So different than Hudson County and Union City with these beautiful gorges and lakes and whatnot. It's awesome.
Right. All right. Well, we will get back to talk to Don Fanelli about his days at Cornell University in just 1 second. But after our ad from Stan Sports Center. Stan Sports Center is your local full-service sporting goods vendor and authorized team dealer. They offer quality products and dozens of brands to outfit your team top to bottom. Stan's has been proudly supporting the local community since 1946 and is your one-stop shop for uniforms, equipment, online team stores, and much more. Locations in Hoboken and Saddlebrook and servicing the entire tri-state area. Visit them on the web at stansportctr.com and check them out on social media for their latest creations. That's Stan Sports Center, located at 528 Washington Street in Hoboken. Telephone number is 201-798-4466. And talking to Don, he says that Dan DiCongilio is one of his patients now. So I think it's pretty ironic that I'm doing an ad for Stan Sports Center, and you have Danny as one of your patients.
Yeah, shout out to Danny and his wife and his wonderful family.
Yeah. Okay. And see, it's only fitting that we could do the ad for the Stan Sports Center in talking to you. Okay, you go to Cornell, and obviously still to this day, no freshmen play varsity. Did you mind that at all, Don? Did you mind that you weren't going to be able to play varsity right away?
No, because the mindset was, and my own personal mindset was one of let me learn as much as I can learn. I was a big fish in kind of a small pond. Now I'm going to go up to a major university and play, albeit not a Division I Notre Dame. It was still a place where I took my academics very seriously. I was concerned about doing well academically as well as excelling in football. So, no, nobody went there thinking that playing as a freshman was even on the table. So we created this incredible bond amongst us, our freshman team, which actually we went on and became undefeated as freshmen, beating a lot of teams that we eventually lost to as varsity players. But we had I basically knew I was going there just to play freshman ball. Didn't faze me. I was more concerned about staying afloat academically.
Okay, and did you know at that point that you already wanted to pursue dentistry?
I had an uncle from Jersey City who was on Manhattan Avenue and Kennedy Boulevard that was a dentist, and we had spoken over the years. I really admired him. I admired the fact that his patients really loved him because we were patients of his as well. And I always loved science, so I thought it might be a good match. I thought about medicine, but my parents having me later in life. My dad really couldn't do any sports with me, so I always thought that one of the priorities would be to be a young dad, to be able to share time with my kids playing sports, and so medicine started to go to the background. Dentistry seemed to make more sense because I could get out and work, sooner.
Okay, that makes sense. All right, and all right. So now sophomore year, you go out for the football team. Obviously, was there any consideration, Don? You could have done it. Was there any consideration at all to play both sports in college?
Yeah, there was. Ben Blewett, I think his name was the varsity basketball coach at the time, and he met with me on the off season because I think he came into Teagle Hall, which was one of our gyms that we all worked out at, and I always played basketball in the off season. I wound up. Let me just digress for a minute. Going into my freshman year at Cornell, I was playing basketball at the monastery one afternoon, and somebody took my legs out from under me, and I fractured my wrist.
Oh,
so
wow.
I showed up freshman year, having been treated by the wonderful John Marshall over at Hospital for Special Surgery. I was eventually an Olympic team physician. John made me a soft cast so I could play basketball, and so I could play football my my freshman year at Cornell. He was a Cornellian himself. Yeah, so like I said, I loved basketball. I thought about it, but again, considering I was a pre-med, pre-dem student, I knew I had to buckle down. When football season ended, the basketball team was like en route to going on a trip to Hawaii or something for their tournament, preseason tournament, and I knew I had exams 2 or 3 weeks later, so I just dismissed the idea of it.
Okay. All right, so now sophomore year at Cornell, you get a chance to play varsity a little bit, and was there a battle for the starting position, or what kind of a backfield did Cornell use back then?
Well, Cornell used the I formation, the fullback that was basically another guard, and a tailback, the feature back that ran the ball somewhere between 20 and 35 times a game. That was Ed Marinaro's position, of course. When I was a sophomore,
Marinaro was gone by the time you got there, though, right?
He was gone. Yes,
yeah.
He was gone. The season before my first varsity season, Dan Malone, he was the featured tailback. He was from Detroit, great running back, nice kid. He's a judge today. Danny had over 1,000 yards rushing. So Dan was the de facto starting guy, and if it wasn't for him fumbling 2 or 3 times against Colgate, I probably wouldn't have got my shot that first game, and I eventually did, and it was pretty much like my high school experience, 3 touchdowns, 175, 190 yards, something like that.
Wow.
And they moved him to tailback. They moved him to flanker back and kept me at tailback from that point on. So it was a brutal position. I mean, literally, I just read a clipping not too long ago. I think I had 36 carries that game.
Wow.
Yeah, 36 carries. They ran you right, they ran you left. That's probably part of the reason for my injury history. But anyway.
All right, but yet you gained 403 yards in only 5 games. Your sophomore year. You scored 5 touchdowns, so you made a mark. You also you had a 10.6 average in receiving, so you caught the ball out of the backfield as well too. So.
Yeah, well, those statistics are beyond me, but if you say so.
I'm looking at them right now. That's how I know. So, all right. Then your junior year, you had probably, I guess, your best year. You had 457 yards in only 4 games in 10 touchdowns. Now, what happened? Why did you only play 4 games?
Well, it was against Harvard, actually. I think I was leading the nation in scoring at the time, which was ridiculous. And what happened was I got injured on a fluke play. Our quarterback floated the ball behind me. I was a release valve. I wasn't even a primary target. I reached back for it, and as I turned, one guy hit me high, one guy hit me low, and that was the first time I had ever had a knee injury. But my MCL was torn, and probably today would have been fixed, and I would have been back on the field by 6th to 7th game. But at the time, there's nothing of the sort. It's either a major operation or isolation, and then ultimately strengthening, which is what they opted for. So that's why I didn't play the rest of the year. It pretty much told me what my future was going to be, that if I had any aspirations to play in the NFL, I better work hard at my education so I could go on to dental school.
Well, was there any thought at all, Don, after the season was over, having the knee repaired so you can play?
I relied on the docs. Team docs, they didn't offer that, and it was a full open. There was no arthroscopic surgery
right.
At that point in time. So the healing would have been months and months. It would have never been the same season, And even my senior. Well, we'll get to my senior, but when I re-injured it, let me get this. I hurt it my sophomore year against Yale. That was what happened.
Oh, okay.
Yale my sophomore year, and then I re-injured it against Harvard my junior year, and that pretty much told the story for me because when I was a senior, we had gotten George Seifert as our head coach. He moved me to fullback, which was more of a 4 yards in a cloud of dust kind of thing, as
right.
opposed to carrying the ball as much. So that's what happened.
See, and I didn't know you played for George Seifert. Was he a good man to work for? Good guy to play for?
Yeah, he was different. He was a West Coast guy, and he's coming from Stanford. He thought he had a premier quarterback, but we really didn't have a quarterback that year. So we should have probably stayed with a more run-focused offense. But we wound up being like 1-8, which is terrible. And then
wow.
He 0-9 next year, which then he wound up going back to the West Coast and became marginally successful at what he did when he went.
Yeah, marginally. I think he made the right move. All right, so your senior year, you didn't really, you said you were 1-8. You had,
I did play the whole season.
yeah, you did play the whole season, all 9 games, but you really didn't get as much chance.
No. I was captain. We do what we do, right? We lead the team and
Right.
do the best we can.
So you had 6 touchdowns your senior year, but you ended with over 1,000 yards for your career and 21 touchdowns. You're able to get your degree from Cornell, which was probably the most important thing.
Yeah. From a football standpoint, it was obviously not what I would have hoped for, but the friendships and the contacts and the general overall experience was one I wouldn't trade for anything.
Okay. Now we talked about it a little bit before the call. Talk to me a little bit about, and talk to everybody about your influence on another St. Joe's football player by the name of Michael Tanner going to Cornell. And did you treat him like he was like your little brother?
Yes, exactly the way I viewed Mike. Mike unfortunately grew up a good part of his early adolescent and late childhood years without a dad, and he had a wonderful mother. Because of my contact with St. Joe's, because actually when I was in dental school, I might have even coached a summer or two with them up at camp. I got to meet the families. I had many friends from Secaucus. My sister lives in Secaucus, so I was, was introduced to his mom early on, and when he came up as a recruit, he stayed with me. I showed him around, made sure he met the right people, tried to filter into the right college at Cornell that would probably best allow him to be successful. And then ultimately, I helped push him towards getting a bid in my fraternity, Chi Psi, which ultimately he was accepted into. So his mom had come up to me one day and said, Donnie, if he comes to Cornell, will you keep a close eye on him? And I know keeping a close eye on Mike was very tough to do.
In more ways than one. I'll do
the best I can. And so she felt comfortable sending him up there, and I would see her periodically, and when she would come up to visit. So yeah, I think I was somewhat influential in making his decision.
All right, and did you see right away how great of an athlete he was, and a lot like you? I mean, the parallels are staggering.
Yeah. Mike was obviously a born leader. His physicality was just off the charts.
Right.
He looked more like a linebacker than a quarterback.
Right.
I had gone to see him play some freshman games. They play a lot of freshman games at night, so I got to see him play, and it's definitely some beaming pride knowing that he was from the same area I was, and he was doing so well. So yeah, it was kind of looking in the mirror a little bit. Having Mike so close to us, and then
he was a little better looking than you were there, Don.
Much better.
Yeah. Okay, but it was you definitely, and while he was up there, while you were up there, treated him like he was a little brother. Then, right?
Absolutely, he was my little brother. He was actually my little brother, quote unquote, in my fraternity. Every.
Oh, he was. Oh, okay. So you pledged him? Yeah.
Yep, I pledged him. Yeah.
Well, that's a great story right there.
Yeah.
And how just all around, how great of an athlete was Mike? He could have played all 3 sports too if he wanted to, couldn't he?
He could have played 3 sports in Cornell, no doubt. He had an arm like a machine, really. He threw the football 80 yards. I saw him throw baseball. He was a good basketball player. He's just a great athlete. He was a great person. I was so fortunate to be able to stay close with him, after college, after his college career. I watched him play when he played varsity because, whenever they'd come to, I'd always go up to Cornell. I think I didn't miss a year going at least to one game up at Cornell when I graduated throughout dental school and later. And, we got to see Mike play frequently. So it was, especially when I came here and played in Princeton and Columbia, we used to go see him all the time. So, yeah, it was, I was very impressed by his abilities.
All right, and then unfortunately we lost Mike in the World Trade Center tragedies, I think he was just a little bit over 40. I think maybe he was like about 43 when he died, and how tragic was that to lose somebody that close to you? in the World Trade Center tragedies.
Yeah, almost impossible to recover from. To this day, every September 11th, I talk to Michelle, his wife, and I've been fortunate enough to care for his family since then and before then. My sisters, his two children, Gianna and Sasha, and even to this day, Sasha's husband, and it was just and Michelle. It, beyond words, Mike and I connected so often, and to lose him. Well, like I said, as his dentist, I was providing forensic stuff for the examiner's office. As his friend, I suffered privately. As someone trying to console his family, it was a whole other level of grief. So.
Great. He was a great man and a great athlete, and he was a teammate of mine, and he's somebody who I miss terribly. And we both suffered that loss that day. There's no question. You obviously much more than me, but that's still he was a great man. All right, tell me a little bit about where you went to dental school.
I went at the time it was UMDNJ, University of Medical Dental.
So you came home.
Yeah, I came home. I actually wanted to go to school in Boston. I just love the city of Boston. But by the time I factored in what the cost would be to go to Tufts or BU, excuse me, which I had been accepted to, and I looked at this brand new, gleamingly clean building up in Newark, I said to myself, this just is a no-brainer. Plus, if I want to work in New Jersey, it'd probably be better in terms of contacts. So yeah, I went to UMDNJ in I guess it's the Central Ward of Newark.
Yep. Now, that was always the goal? You wanted to come back home?
I think so. I think that I had elderly parents. I wanted to be closer to them, my older sisters. It was very family oriented. Like I said, it's one of the reasons why I thought of dentistry and not necessarily medicine because of all the years of residency and programs. I pretty much thought that way.
Okay. And talk to me then. How did you meet your wife, and where did that all come about?
Yeah, my wife Donna was a Jersey City girl. Yeah, went to Snyder, and she was working. She was one of the first graduates from the Allied Health Program, the dental assisting program at UMDNJ. She had gotten a job at the school at the time. It was actually in Jersey City Medical Center.
Okay.
And when they moved to Newark, she took a job there in the oral diagnosis department. And I think first saw her there. She had to take X-rays on me or something. So of course I was interested right away. And I think I made some lame comment to her in the hallway one day, and I said, "Hey, how you doing? My name is Don, just in case." And in true Jersey City fashion, she said, "Just in case what, jerk?" It's true.
Sounds like a Jersey City girl, that's for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then our first official date was at the bottom of the barrel.
Oh my God!
Talk about a blast from the past, right?
You're not kidding. I used to work right around the corner from it. I used to go, when I worked for the dispatch, I went right after work was over. I went right to the bottom of the barrel. So yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. And then, how long did it take before you had children?
Oh, not too long. Probably, we got married like a month after I graduated dental school. I worked for about maybe 2 years, and entering, towards the end of that second year, she became pregnant. We had our first child, Lauren, and then 3 years later, my son Don was born. Yeah, very lucky.
Very lucky. And then, do you have any grandchildren now?
Yeah, I have three grandchildren, 3 girls, Sophia, Allie, and Joni. Joni's my son, so they live out on the West Coast, and Allie and Sophia live with Lauren and her husband in Harrington Park.
Okay, so they're nearby. You get to see them a lot, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. And then, how much, Don, do you follow sports still to this day? I mean, and do you have patients that come in? Obviously, we mentioned a whole bunch of patients that are from Hudson County and have followed you out to your offices in Riverville. Oh, your office is in Rutherford. Okay, so it's close. Okay. So, what you call it? So, how many of you got a whole bunch of patients that come in that obviously know you as being a friend, but how many people come in and know you as being Don Fanelli, the sports star, and come in and that's how you acquire patients?
It's interesting. My first partner, who just retired a couple of years ago, Steve Steno, was from Weehawken, and I wound up meeting him playing basketball on right by the Lincoln Tunnel in some summer league.
Run by Turk Jordan.
Run by Turk Jordan, became good friends and ultimately partners. And when we looked at the Meadowlands area, it's just an up-and-coming area. We said Rutherford would be a great place to act, a conduit from Hudson County, almost like a pipeline up the three, plus our Bergen County affiliates. So yes, I get a lot of patients that moving when I have a lot of patients that are friends and then friends of friends, and then getting a little involved in the Rutherford community and becoming patrons of St. Mary's and Rutherford High School itself. Has been and East Rutherford Beckton. They've been very supportive of my practice, and I'm extremely grateful. I met Jimmy Spinarco there, who lives in Rutherford.
Sure does.
I've run into other old has-beens like myself, and we talk about, even like Richie Cosgrove comes up from Seagirt for his work, and Nicky Armelino, who was our sixth man on a basketball team, comes in from Union City, lives there now. So, yeah, I look at sports then as being so, important to my life now to a degree, yes, but in terms of following it, I so much enjoy watching high school sports.
Oh, you do? Okay. Where do you go to see?
My son plays Riverdale. We live in River Edge.
Right.
So I still am pretty active going to those sports and sporting events. Of course, COVID has thrown a big curve at everything, and it kind of makes sports look less important than they were, but it's still something that makes your brain relax.
So did he play basketball for Brian Long?
My son played basketball for Brian Long for 2 years.
Okay.
He excelled in baseball. He played 2 years at Lehigh. He was a track kid. He was a 55-meter record setter for the high school, triple jump, all county. My daughter was a state sectional champ, 55-meter runner, and a sprinter for Riverdale.
Oh, so wait a minute. So it's your son who's the actor?
My son, yeah, is the actor, writer. Yep.
Oh, that's wild. See?
Yeah.
Now obviously he looks like your wife.
He does.
Yeah. Thank God, right?
He's like my wife.
He's a good-looking young man, right? He's 35.
He's 37.
37. Okay, I was close, right? And how old's Lauren?
Lauren's 40.
Okay.
She's a professor at Rutgers. She teaches the creative writing program there, the expository writing program, and literature. So she's, they're all busy, especially these days with all that Zoom going on.
Sure.
But she was to run at Cornell. She went to Cornell. She was to run there, but sustained a knee injury. And wound up.
You must run in the family too, huh?
I guess. Well, you know what, Jim? I never had a knee problem. It was the damn polyturf up there,
Oh God. Oh geez.
On that old turf.
Yep.
So much friction on the knee. I think I never hurt my knee playing ball in high school. It's just a quirky thing, I guess.
Yep, and that is the reason that horrible turf is the reason why I have back and leg problems today too, because it was not giving. It was not as giving as what the turf is now. That was they would roll that out, and I went to Marquette. They rolled that out on a almost like on a parking lot, and there was no. All you had was like a quarter of an inch layer of that turf. It was ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Oh.
It was hard as hell.
Yep.
Played in Ithaca at the beginning of winter. I'm telling you, it was like getting tackled on concrete.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was like. I didn't get tackled because I was blocking, but it's still every time I was hitting the ground, it was terrible. But you would play a game on Saturday and you'd ache until Wednesday, and then they're asking you to hit live again on Thursday. You had no chance to recover. It was terrible. It was absolutely horrible. All right. So anyway, we don't need to commiserate over our injuries, but overall, Don, how great was it for you to be able to have the life and the career you have, and it probably would not have happened if it wasn't for you being an athlete.
Well, there's no doubt that's the case. I'm so grateful to, like I said, my early mentors to not push, but to gently tap me in the direction that they saw my aptitude. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. They saw my abilities and they guided me in the direction. I'm over the moon grateful to all of them. Like I said, Franco Jewell was one of my guys. He knew how to push, but without being extremely forceful about it. I owe almost everything to having had the sports career that I had in Hudson County, and the opportunity. That was the thing. He gave me an opportunity and then put my best foot forward and to show what I had, basically. Just, there comes a time when it's just you.
It's true. That's true. All right. I asked you this off the phone. I'm going to ask you now on the record. Do you look back at your career and realize how truly remarkable it was for you to be a two-sport, all-county, all-state athlete, as great of an athlete as you were in the two sports? Do you look back and say, wow, that was pretty remarkable? Or do you just, say, hey, I was just doing what I was doing?
I always tried, and I think it comes out of these older systems that try to keep me humble all the time. Listen,
well, I don't want you. You can brag now, Don. You're an older man,
I was just grateful, and I was fortunate for all the stars to align to have the people on my team that supported my ability. A running back, and I found that out. My senior year, a running back is nothing without a prodigious line. And so it was those people that surrounded me that allowed me to be able to be whatever I was. My own work ethic that I got from my parents. The dedication that they showed all the time. The loving support of my family. All those things motivated me to try to be as good as I could, and then not talk about it. Just do it. You played in the schoolyard. You didn't talk about how good you are. You didn't, go in someone's face like very much is done today. You showed it on the court. You showed it on the field, and you left it on the field. You didn't carry it around with you, to hurt their feelings later. So that's the way I look.
Beautiful. Well, Don, I really appreciate you taking the time to spend an hour with me on the podcast. You were a great guest, and you brought back a lot of memories because I remember you greatly as an athlete. I just wish I remembered where the game was played in 1971, but I certainly remember you. And I don't remember your point total either. So now those are the two things I will totally remember from now on. But as a member of the Hudson County Sports Hall of Fame, and I would imagine, are you in the Cornell Hall of Fame as well?
I am not in the Cornell Hall of Fame.
We'll work on that. But obviously, and if there was a St. Joe's Hall of Fame, I bet you would definitely be there.
I am in the St. Joe's.
So St. Joe's Hall of Fame, but more importantly, the Hudson County Sports Hall of Fame, which we put you in, must be about 20 years ago.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, it's been a while. So anyway, thank you so very much for sharing the hour with me. You were a great guest, and I look forward to talking to you again in the near future. You take care of yourself, Don.
Thanks so much for the opportunity. I appreciate it.
Thank you for bearing with me. So you take care, and I'll talk soon.
Bye-bye.
And that was my special guest, Don Fanelli from St. Joe's of the Palisades, and then Cornell University, who is now a very successful dentist in Rutherford. Thank you very much for listening to the Hudson County Sports Podcast, brought to you by Stan Sports Center, which is the local full-service sporting goods vendor and authorized team dealer. They offer quality products and dozens of brands to outfit your team top to bottom. Stan's has proudly been supporting the local community since 1946. And is your one-stop shop for uniforms, equipment, online team stores, and much more. Locations in Hoboken and Saddlebrook and serving the entire tri-state area. Visit them on the web at stansportsctr.com and check them out on social media for their latest creations. That's Stan Sports Center, located at 528 Washington Street in Hoboken. Telephone number 201-798-4466. Thanks again for listening to this week's Hudson County Sports Podcast. We'll have another guest next week. From all of us, my executive producer, my great nephew Johnny Haig. This is Jim Haig. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.